This is the Note Closer Show, where you get the latest developments in distressed note investing and learn the secrets of how you can control millions of dollars worth of property for pennies on the dollar. Get educated and entertained by someone who has closed thousands of deals and lives to support you in achieving the same. Now, here's your host, CEO of We Close Notes, Scott Carson.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Note Closer Show. As always, Scott Carson. Excited to be here with you today and honored to have a very special guest on here. This guy is recovering from a very competitive game of pickleball this morning, but we're honored to have him out here. You may have seen me appear on his show, the Jesse T Show, a few weeks back. He was also a guest on our International Podcast Day live stream that we did a few weeks back, but he is the founder of 46 and 2 Wealth Partners. He's out of hot Atlanta, but lives in, calls Boston home originally as well, too. He's a fee-only investment management and financial planning firm. And he's the host of the Jesse T Show, another podcast called The Soup Sandwich out there. But this guy has a passion for not only doing amazing things and calling his clients family and treating them like family. And some of the things we'll be talking about today. We'll talk about the market a little bit. But most importantly, he's an author, speaker, biohacker, and of course, an amazing dad out there. So we're honored to have the one, the only, Mr. Jesse Todisco joining us today on the Note Closer Show. What's going on, Jesse? How you doing, buddy?
Brother, everything. Just like you said, man, getting after an early game of football with the boys this morning, and I'm pumped. I'm ready to go.
Well, I think it's always important to kind of get the juices flowing, getting the energy going. The philosophy of getting your body movement means good things happen to you in a variety of fashion, right? Because you got your energy going up. You're not being docile. That's important. And I think a lot of people are struggling with everything that's going on today, being stuck at home in a lot of places, not wanting to go out and venture. And, instead of the freshman 15, I think we're having the COVID 20 a lot for a lot of people, huh?
Yeah, I put on the COVID 15, and I've since dropped probably about 21. So I'm up 6, which is good. Technically, I'm down 6, but I'm winning by 6, which is good.
That's good. Now, one of the things I want to dive in a little bit for you is why don't you share kind of your 9 to 5 with those out there? And I want to dive into it because I think it's important for everybody out there, whether you're a note investor, a real estate investor, or somebody who's looking to dive into the market in some sort of fashion. Yeah. Have kind of a balance we do. So, Jesse, why don't you talk about kind of what you do with your clients?
I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for you and your listeners for having me. There's 400,000 financial planners or people that call themselves financial planners in the United States alone. And out of those 400,000, there's only 5% of us that are fiduciaries, which basically means we won't screw you over. And it's in our interest to not do that because when you win, we win. And so what that looks like is we don't sell products, we don't sell services, we don't charge commissions. I have nothing against commissions, but in the financial planning world, there's some perverse incentives to have commissions. And so I've removed that from my business. I help entrepreneurs and executives live life well through financial planning, whether that's investment management, whether that's helping them scale their businesses, whether that's them keeping more of their money, making more of their money, or the best part, to stop trading time for money. Mm-hmm. That's my sweet spot.
Yeah, I love that. And that's why I was so excited to have you on the show. I mean, nothing wrong. I come from a financial planning background, but you're right. When you work for a company or a bank, it is heavily commissioned. Yep. And sometimes the commissions don't slant in the way of the client in a lot of cases.
Agreed. Now, yeah, it takes away that incentive. And even I never had that problem because I did come from that world. I came from the broker world where I worked through a broker and I sold on commission, and I have integrity. I know a lot of people out there have integrity, but you just never know. You just never know if it's in the best interest for the client or for the salesperson. And I wanted to remove that altogether from my business. So it was just never a question.
Now, we have a lot of our listeners out there all across the country that are working, a lot of times are working a day job, but they're transitioning to something. They're chasing their dream. They're starting to be more active in real estate and note investing, or they're looking to do, kind of move from that side hustle to the main hustle. Out there, what counsel would you give to those out there that are going through that right now?
Yeah, I'll give you 2 pieces, and they go both. It's the yin and the yang. So the first thing, the entrepreneur, the creative in me says, go for it. Go for that which inspires you, which motivates you, which drives you, which lights a fire under your ass, whatever that is. If that's a business, if that's a consulting gig, whatever that is. The flip side of that, the financial planner in me is going to tell you to be practical as hell. Have as much money as possible, have as many contacts as possible, lay the groundwork with processes in the business, automate as much as you can, and be as practical as possible, but dream too.
Yeah, I love that. One of the big things when we're talking with our students and they want to go full-time as investors, always, okay, well, let's figure out, let's walk the numbers. How many deals do you have to have done to get where you've replaced your income?
Yes.
And if you can balance the two, that's even better for you to the point for a while until you do make that break to the full-time entrepreneurship basic things.
100%. You can't, you know, money is the lifeblood of any business and of any family unit, like just operating your monthly bills, taking care of mortgage or rent or insurances or different things like this. It's the same thing for a business. And until you can completely replace or come close to that, you should probably still toe the line of working in corporate and then making that leap. Now there's other thought leadership out there, which I've fallen into, of entrepreneurs that make it seem to be the ones that'll jump out of an airplane without a parachute, and they'll figure out how to build the parachute before they hit the ground because they've basically burned the boats. Like there's no other option. And so there's that side to it too. But just to be practical, for the most people, for the 99% of people doing the leap, make sure you have all your ducks in a row and that you're prepared. And at the same time, I'll back talk myself a little bit. You know, sometimes you have to leap a little bit before you're ready. So it's just kind of that where you feel comfortable, where you're happiest. And if you're ready, great. And if you feel like you're almost ready, go for it.
Mm-hmm. One of the biggest things I'll throw out there is I remember when I left my corporate America to pursue entrepreneurship the first time around, and I failed miserably because I didn't have the systems in place. I wasn't dedicated to it. I was like, oh, I ain't got to wake up at 7 o'clock to fight traffic anymore. I'll sleep until 8:30, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, right? Yeah. Oh, wait, we're done at 3 o'clock, happy hour time, right? Yep. You know, the idea of banker's hours for the most part. To strangle your business without you even knowing it, right?
That's true. Yeah, you got to put in the effort. That's the thing, is there's a lot of freedom and there's a lot of control, and that's some of the beauty of entrepreneurship. I mean, you're running your own thing, and no one's really telling you what to do, unless you're married, and then someone usually tells you what to do. But outside of that, it's really, you do have to have discipline, and you do have to execute. So all the motivation in the world is great. You can listen to Gary Vee, Les Brown, all these wonderful thought leaders that just get you hype. But the rubber has to meet the road and stay on the road, and that's in the form of execution and discipline all day long.
Yeah, I just stopped watching Gary Vee because I was losing an hour a day listening to him rant about the same 12 topics.
He says that. He says, you've seen enough of me, go execute. Like one day you're going to realize that you don't need to hear. And I did the same thing. I was like, Gary, I've heard you. I'm done. I'm on.
Yeah. Now, with everybody going through kind of pivots, figuring out where things are going at, I'm sure you've got some clients that have gone through that aspect of things where businesses dropped off. They've had to kind of reinvent what they're doing. Any advice that you would give to those out there? They're kind of facing some things.
Diversify your portfolio. Thankfully, a lot of my clients are prepared for this. You know, there's a couple outliers just depending on service-based businesses that got hurt really hard. But even they've been able to pivot because, just like I had a conversation with one of my buddies yesterday, I said, you know, he's into a few different things. And again, when you work with a fiduciary, they're not just going to try to sell you a stock. They're not going to just try to sell you, they won't even probably sell you a mutual fund if they're good. But, you know, I talk about real estate. I talk about, you know, currencies. You know, Bitcoin. I talk about, depending on what these people are into, you have to diversify. You know, if people need to be heavy in cash, real estate, businesses are a great investment if you know the business and you know how to make money with it. And so, even though that there's been a pandemic and a crisis, a lot of my clients were positioned well where they didn't have all their eggs in one basket. And furthermore, we took advantage of the downturn. A lot of my clients made money. So it's one of those things where planning, preparation, and then making it happen.
Now, I'm the inner entrepreneur. I mean, okay, how did some of your clients take advantage? What were some examples where they were able to take advantage without giving away the golden goose?
No, I'll give away the golden goose. So like in March, you know, when we got hit pretty hard, a lot of Fortune 500 blue chip companies that aren't going anywhere, they have billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars in assets and revenue. You know, you can't guarantee that a company won't go out of business, but most likely these companies are going to stand the test of time. And we got into Apple, Delta, we got into some really strong companies at pennies on the dollar, and they've already seen tremendous growth. So basically, I'm not a fire sale guy, but I'm an opportunity guy. And if I see an opportunity, I'm going to take care of it and make sure my clients get in front of it. So there was also different things like Zoom was up a couple 1,000%, and they weren't going to stay there. You can short Zoom. Like you can make sure, like there's different things you can do. And basically like Peloton and some other things that were out there, Teledoc went up. Like you got to read the market and also look forward. And there's no one that can predict the future. And I am definitely like a traditional investor. I believe in holding things for the long term because things appreciate, but you can take advantage of the small wins in between if you're prepared well.
Yeah. Now, where are you getting all your information from? I know because you're talking about a lot of variety of things. You've got to really stay on top of educating and entertaining yourself with this information too, to be a valuable resource, huh?
Yeah, man. Believe it or not, it's going to sound kind of stodgy and old school, but I do a lot of learning from Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. Yeah. Some of the best investors in the world. They've done it for 60, 70, 80 years. Charlie's 90 something years old now. It's really funny. I was going to the Berkshire Hathaway meeting every year. This year it got canceled, but basically it's where Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger get together with all the shareholders, and it's in this huge like 17, 18,000 person like basketball, arena in Omaha, Nebraska. And basically like Bill Gates is there and like all these world leaders are there and they're just talking about their businesses and things that they own. And they're fundamental investors. They basically, they like to own things that make sense, that they're ethical, they believe in, that they can make money on. And so that's how I look at things from my standpoint is I learn from people that have done well. So I seek out people that have my mentor is one of the biggest pieces to that. I think it's Patrick Tucker. He is the reason why I go to Berkshire Hathaway meeting every year is because he lives in Omaha too, and he gives us passes when we go and everything. And he's an investment advisor, and he's 20 years down the road from me. And he's my tribe. He's a bearded guy. He doesn't give a shit how he looks. Like he works out. He's a family man. He's into faith, and he's someone that I admire and look up to. And he gives me a lot of insight as well too. But between different things like current events, the old school guys, Charlie and Warren and my mentor. There's a lot of things you can pay attention to. And there's a lot of things you shouldn't pay attention to as well. And that's the secret. The secret is, especially now with everything that's going on in the world, don't listen to the noise. Like be a free thinker, question authority. So I seek out information where I need to, but those are kind of like the three places that I get a lot of my sources from.
That makes a lot of sense. And I love that last point. Tune out the noise because there's a lot of noise and false information. I was just actually talking online with somebody just recently said, they're all spouting about the downfall's not going to happen and we're not going to see it. I'm like, wait a second here. You're like a quarter behind everything. I said, I've been speaking to a lot of banks and asset managers and their story is completely different from what the news is telling you.
What are they saying? I'm interested to hear.
They're saying that, it all depends on what each individual bank is at. Like I've had one bank conversation where they're primarily commercial lender and they've got that smaller balance, 5 million and less. So they're going to be hit hard here this quarter and next quarter because they're the ones calling me back. All right. Yeah. Now the other banks out there that have a bigger residential portfolio, it all depends. Now, if they were a big government insured, they're probably not going to see too big of hit because Uncle Sam's going to bail them out. Yeah. Or they're going to move the whole portfolio to somebody else for just a small discount and still be sitting really well. Yep. You have to look at all those lenders because there was a ton of subprime lenders not subprime, non-prime, as they call them now, that were popped up in the last 2 years doing crazy 100% financing subprime loans. Well, you have to track who they sold that paper to.
Correct.
And that's the assets you have to go after. So many people get in the habit of like, let's wait to see what's on the MLS or let's see on these low-hanging websites, and most of the trades aren't going to end up hitting where most of the public is just sitting around waiting for them to show up.
They stay off the book, so to speak. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Those pocket deals, you got to go out and really hunt and kill. And I know that's one of the things that you were just mentioning there, seeing what's going on in whether it's good or bad, and then maybe not only shorting the market but looking at who's going to do well. Zoom is probably the biggest company that's done probably the best out of this whole thing in the last 8 months.
For sure. Yeah, Zoom, Peloton, Teledoc, all these at-home services that people really could invest in. And because they were at home, they were, thinking about health, obviously. So there's a lot of companies that had that kind of rise like they did.
Mm-hmm. And we'll throw that out there as entrepreneurs, those fitness instructors who embrace the online client have done well and they've been fine. Those that relied on brick and mortar and showing up to the gym to get clients, they're all out looking for something else these days.
100%, and it goes right in line with the way retail's been changing over the last couple of decades, and the way malls are kind of going by the wayside of not in business anymore. And it's really just those few anchor stores that kind of keep them around. But people for a long time, that's like an old, outdated example. Like people should have been pivoting a long time ago, whether it's online, whether it's converting their brick and mortars into something that's a little bit more hip and trendy, like it's like either a co-working space or in Atlanta, there's a lot of these markets where you have like 20, 30, 40 restaurants, different styles, different things. And it just brings all these types of people together in one building. So one old factory building that used to be, just one company now has 30, 40, 50 companies in it. And like, it's a different style. So I think looking into the future, another big one we're looking at right now is cash is essentially going away, even though it's because of the pandemic. I don't think it is. I think this is like everything else. It's kind of like a litmus test to see how we respond. I personally haven't carried cash in years. It's rare that I have cash. Yeah. But things they're doing like with your wallet inside your phone, and even like some of these digital currencies that are been trying to come online for some time now. It's only a matter of time before that happens. So seeing those things and knowing that's going to shift, whether you like it or not, you can plan ahead for the future and get ahead like on a company that maybe, and again, I'm not a wizard. I'm not picking lottery picks, but you can kind of see things where things are leading to.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the whole point where like, oh, hey, we have no change, got to be exact change. I'm like, wait a second here.
Right.
That says something there. But then you also look at the doubles talk. We talk about how, what was it last year? All the bigger bank firms were like, oh, no to crypto. And then you see Jamie Dimon at Chase be the first bank to roll out some sort of crypto aspect of things. I'm like, okay, what you're saying here is one thing, but what you're doing is a whole different thing.
Let me give you a scoop. And this is happening at the Fed level too. So I get a buddy who I can't talk about him there because it's like super hush hush. You know how banks are, but he's working with a bank somewhere in the country in the United States, and they're partnering together to be able to do on-demand, real-time payroll, but they're doing it through using the ledger of like cryptocurrency or blockchain. And so they're using digital currency at a brick and mortar bank that's a pretty good sized super regional bank to be able to process payroll immediately. And it does a couple things. And essentially for the bank, it's going to drive in like 150,000 new clients, which is insane to think about coming from the banking space. But these things are happening. And one of his biggest competitions was an arm of the government. The government's already doing this stuff too. So it's absolutely happening.
We see a lot of that too. We start seeing the new green, the Mary Jane, the hemp industry, I guess you could say, the marijuana industry.
Dude. Hell yeah. You know what else is coming online? This isn't my world. I won't go too deep into it, but even like psychedelics and plant medicines that are going to be used for therapies and really disrupt, the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah, the shroom boom.
Hell yes.
Your eyes lit up
great.
there.
I'll steal that. I did. I actually, once a quarter, I do a plant medicine journey for myself, and I get a lot of information from it, but absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that brings me to what I wanted to talk about a little bit, dude, because you're you talk about being a biohacker, and this kind of leads us into that aspect of things. And you like you said, we were talking beforehand, you made the journey down and had
ayahuasca, yeah.
Ayahuasca, thank you. I think you pronounce it correctly once you've made that journey once before.
Right. So. Right. Yeah. No. That was actually put on hold. I was supposed to be in Peru in May with a group of executives, business people, so people that you wouldn't necessarily think do this sort of thing, but absolutely, that's the type of people. A lot of Fortune 500 people are doing these things, like executives and people that are high levels, because of the information they come back with. And so, because I couldn't get out to Peru because their borders are still shut down because of COVID, I pivoted to a connection, and he was able to get me psilocybin mushrooms, which is the same kind of idea.
Yeah.
And, I sat, and it's going to sound weird, but I sat in ceremony with it, which means I gave it respect. I fasted before I did it. Like I did the work before the work, because it is, to give people context, a couple things. Number one, everybody who does it says it's one of the top 5, like, most moving experiences in their life.
Yeah.
That being said, it is one of the hardest things sometimes, because the emotions that come from it, and you get information. So what happens is you get downloads that come to you that you have a knowing and a belief. I've seen God consciousness before, and I've seen unity consciousness as a human race. I've gotten things about my family that's made me a better dad. The other time I did it recently, I got a knowledge saying eat life, which basically just like means eat healthy, but like just in a different way. And there was one other thing that said use your microphone, which is really interesting. And it said use your microphone to speak the truth. And this could be part of that. So it's really interesting that you come away with not just, it's a knowing. Like all of a sudden you just know it, and it's like Neo in the Matrix. He woke up and he's like, I know Kung Fu. I woke up and I knew things, and I'm like, whoa. So yeah.
Well, I think we all are so stressed out, and we're so bombarded with so different messages, and to have that journey where you can unwind, unplug, leave the stresses of the world behind, it allows you that openness to really have new ideas and new thoughts. It's not, I don't think it's just the plant or the shrooms or whatever it is. I think it's got something to do with it, but I think it's the journey that opens you up to be able to receive that stuff, or to take that reactiveness away, because we're all in a reactive state, to the proactive state of our minds. And yeah, some of the best ideas come when you're the most laid back, and hey,
it's sacred knowledge, man. There's people that find God when they do it. There's people that find insights about themselves. That, like, a lot of ego work is done, so people just show up better and love better in the world. But there's this interesting infographic. I'll send it to you once we jump off. But it shows the brain activity under normal stimulation, and it's firing these different colors and these different patterns, and it shows your brain when you're doing plant medicines, and it's making these connections to different parts of your brain that you've never made before. And so it's literally, it's not harming you, it's not addictive, it's none of that. It's just literally getting you to think differently and make exchanges in your brain you would never make, that you can just think differently, which is really great.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that stuff, because it helps you literally get beyond so many things. And when you're too busy listening to what's going on in the world and the negativity of life, we all know there's nothing but negativity out there in a lot of cases. It's hard to find that positive, that the ability to flip the switch to change the emotions. And if you go you've talked about it, the biohacking, seeing a brain when it's a negative, where it's stress, and then flipping it to it's a positive nature, music, whatever it might be. Maybe it's not shrooms, maybe it's music, or sitting out in
creativity.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's got different mind hacking aspect of things of that. But I think it's so important to do that now. I don't know about you, but there are times when this whole thing's gone on the last 9 months. Yeah, we have good days and bad days. It seems a whole lot of similar Groundhog Day experiences in a lot of cases, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, man. There's all sorts of ways to get there. You can do meditation. You can do holotropic breathing, which is very similar. I do Wim Hof. Wim Hof breathing has become very mainstream over the last couple of years, and it's literally changing the physical state of your body. And it has healing properties. You can get out in the sun, and all these states of dis-ease, which lead to disease, can be really controlled by things like sleeping well, eating well, getting enough sun, getting enough movement, playing. Another thing that's really interesting too is, and this morning I was playing pickleball with a bunch of 35, 40-year-old guys, and we're like little kids talking smack, having a hell of a time. It's beautiful. We're like little kids out there. And I bring that up because in terms of biohacking is just intentionally focus on something in your system, whether it's central nervous system, whether it's muscular, whether it's scalp, whatever it is, and being able to optimize and enhance that system through a protocol, which is healthy, right? And the biggest thing I can say that I've learned is there's these blue zones that are in the world. And these blue zones are places like Okinawa, or in different places like Finland, is these different countries where these people are living they're living over 100, but they're living very well. So the candle's burning bright for a long time. They're still playing, they're still running, they're still creative, they're still very smart, and they're 90 and 100 and above. And they're trying to figure out, they've done a lot of studies on why this is. And, people think it's the diet, it's the genetics, it's the environment, and it could be some of those things. But what they're really starting to land on is it's the community and the things that happen in those communities, from playing to arts to dance to music. And so the biggest biohack I can say that will keep you young is just, act like a kid as much as you can.
Yeah, I saw a documentary on Netflix about that too, with Zac Efron talking about areas of Italy, areas of Finland, like you talked about, where they are extreme 90s, 100 plus, and they're very active. They're walking down, get their glass of wine or a glass of vino every day, and living a good life. Not all worried about not filling their mouths and bodies with medicine and vitamins. They're literally still getting most of their stuff from their diet. And like you said, the sun's so important in the vitamin D aspect of things.
Yeah, dude. And the thing I could say, there's a guy I follow, his name is Paul Chek, Chek, and he was like one of the first biohackers, if you will. He's big into all sorts of optimization, but he talks about the 4 doctors. And the most important doctor that you can see before you actually have to go see a real doctor is Dr. Rest or Dr. Sleep. Even just maintaining your sleep, go to bed at a consistent time of night, wake up at a consistent time in the morning, usually, within, like, wake up before the sun, all these different things. Then also, like, not disturbing that keeps you away from health issues. And we have this control, and it goes back to the entrepreneur conversation of, I can sleep in till 9, I can leave at 3, I can start drinking here. You could do those things, but there's consequences too. So your candle might burn bright, but it might burn out quick.
That's the truth. One of my favorite things to do, I haven't done it lately, I need to go out there and just thinking about it, is going and spending time in a noise deprivation chamber.
Hell yeah.
Floating on.
I've never done that.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So
I want to, but I'm afraid.
Well, everybody thinks it's like, oh, kind of corny. What are you going to do? And here's the experience. And I highly recommend this to everybody.
Okay.
Go down, you sit in it, they have you sit in a room quietly, kind of your mind. You obviously get off your cell phone. There's no noise, no TV, just peaceful sounds and lights. And then they put you in we have one here in Austin. And basically it's a metal, like, square box.
Yeah.
And it's got like a foot of salt water. I mean, heavily there's like 50 gallons of salt in it. Okay. So you're floating. Everybody will float. I don't care how big you are. You're going to float on this thing. Okay.
Of course. Yeah.
It's an hour-long thing, and it's completely noise, and they have lights to start off, and they fade, and then suddenly you're sitting there floating with just your thoughts. Total darkness. And what I found every time I've done this, it takes a little while to get into it, get them fade. But then if you're floating there all kind of, you suddenly will have a shake. Like one of your arms will suddenly just completely relax, and it has a little seizure.
Wow.
And it does it like your whole body does that at the end, and you're like just completely relaxed, and you're sitting there, and suddenly an hour is up. You're like, where did it go? But you walk out of it, and suddenly you're just like, oh, you're at it's like the world's best massage with a happy ending at the end, I guess you could say. Right?
That's awesome.
But it's you're like, and then the most other kind of experience that I could even recommend it to would have been like going skydiving the first time.
Yeah.
You're scared, you're nervous, you jump on the plane and you're floating. At the end, you don't give a shit about anything for 2 weeks because you just experienced free fall for the most part. But those are some of the little things that you can do, and it does have a lasting impact on your health and kind of just, like you said, drinking a lot of water, sleeping properly can put your mind at ease, because we all know this engine's constantly going 24/7, right?
It needs recovery, and that's when we grow and repair. The interesting thing about the float tank is I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan. He does a lot of float tanks, and he does them on plant medicines. I couldn't even imagine being trapped in there on that. But I'm really jealous of you being in Austin. Number one, I always wanted to go. I'm being pulled to Austin, and I'll tell you how the patterns have happened. So years ago, it was South by Southwest. I wanted to go to South by Southwest because that seemed really cool. And then years ago, I also found out there's a ton of people I follow in Austin. So I don't know if you're familiar with the company. It's really big, but it's called On It, and it's in Austin, Texas. There's a guy, Aubrey Marcus, that used to run it, Kyle Kingsbury, two of my favorite people that I actually hung out with a couple times, and they're into this whole biohacking and optimization and plant medicine world. There's another guy, Aaron Alexander. There's Tim Kennedy, who's this amazing, he's basically Captain America, essentially. And he fights for our country. He's a Green Beret. He's 30-something years old. He re-enlisted because the General Mattis got in and all this different stuff. And Joe Rogan's over there now too. So it's like I can't wait to get to Austin, and then we'll be able to hang out too.
Well, then you've also got the likes of Tim Ferriss calls Austin home here too as well.
I love Tim Ferriss. I didn't even know I thought he was a California dude.
I know that's what most people think about, but his 3-4 hour podcast, he talks a lot about Austin here in a lot of cases.
That's how I started my podcast, was Tim Ferriss.
Yep.
I've been on that track of like those different thought leaders, and like I used to, that's even when I shoot the Jesse T show, it's very much similar to Tim Ferriss and how he did his, but I learned so much from Tim, and then Tim led me to someone else and another person. And so, yeah, I love Tim, and it's great that he's near you.
Yeah. Now you also, we haven't talked about this, but I know you're very active, and you've got a movement going. You started a group. Let's talk a little about that movement.
Yeah, so there's a group we put together called the Masculinity Movement, and it's not anti-feminism, it's not anti-anything. It's pro men learning how to be men and show up well in the world. I can tell you firsthand from my experience, and many others that have told me, like, there are things we just weren't taught as men. Case in point, crying in front of your children, because you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be tough. Or maybe taking a few months off to go do something or work on something if you can monetarily afford that, when we're always the provider, and that's like what we're supposed to do. And, a lot of those things are true. We're built a certain way. We're big, we're strong. We're supposed to protect physically in danger. Most times we're not put in those situations. And so we really have to evolve. And that's kind of like my whole mindset, what you see behind me is just evolution, right? And that goes along with spirituality. But, the big thing about the masculinity movement is it's a change, it's a brotherhood, and it's a movement. And movement's a play on words because we do things like pickleball where we're moving together, or we're going out and doing fun stuff, throwing axes, or learning about journaling or poetry, and like all these different things that basically become, it's gonna sound silly, like warrior monks, like like basically like warrior monks, where you're fit for service at any level, but you're intellectual, you're emotional, you're empathetic, and it's not. So there's this thing that's been happening over the last few years with like toxic masculinity and like men doing terrible things to men and women, and like the Me Too movement. And then there's the flip side where you have men that like are just not men at all. And so we want to branch the two together and have this kind of cohesiveness where we can be strong yet vulnerable. We can be successful yet, chill when we want to chill. And then just basically lead better for our families, lead better for ourselves, lead better for our businesses and our communities. And it's just this beautiful amalgamation of people from around the world that have joined on this little Facebook group that share insights, and we read books together. And it's really cool. And it's kind of been on pause because I've just been focusing on other things, but it's beautiful, brother.
Well, and I think that's, the world is in need of leadership more so than we've ever had these days. And it's not, I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. Everybody's a loser in the swamp, as you could say. You know what I mean? The game is not meant for us to win. It's meant for those who ever get elected there. They're the ones that are out for themselves. It's only obvious with everything.
We can have a whole podcast on politics. And
exactly. And we'll avoid politics and religion, the two sources you shouldn't be talking about in a bar for the most part.
I love talking about those things.
Yeah, I know, right? Exactly. Go all day.
Soup sandwich, by the way. If you want to talk about those things, we'll have you on as a guest, and we'll talk. That's what we do. We do politics. We do pedophilia, Hollywood crap. We do UFOs. We do plant medicines. All the stuff that you want to talk about that you usually don't.
Yeah, that's on the Soup Sandwich podcast, everybody, that you host with Jay Worthy, right?
Yep.
Good stuff there for.
Yeah, that's he's a business guy. I come from an outside sales background where I used to go door to door, cold call, commission, business to business, and he did too. And so we both know what it takes to get through that business and how to become successful. And so we have this kind of dynamic, but then we're very kind of interested in a lot of the same things, like outlier stuff. We have some good information on. So usually it's just a shit show, man. We just get on there, we start yapping about stuff, and like it's interesting, and we'll crack a couple beers, we'll get a little loose, but it's a good flip side from the podcast that I do, the Jesse T Show, where it's business mindset, it's growth mindset, it's more serious, it's interviewee. This is just like let it all hang out and talk a lot of mess. So
I want to bring something back. Being an outside sales, and same here in the past, there a lot of people these days, they get an ownership, they don't realize that no is their friend.
Right.
And that's hard to embrace by a lot of people. We've always figured out from hours and hours and working that, hey, you got to have so many no's until you get that yes.
Yes.
And having the wherewithal to drive through that no, or basically switching and realize, hey, that no means not now, but maybe later on for the
100%.
most part. Yeah. Is there any kind of number, any game that you would play, or any type of KPIs you would put in place for the number of no's to get to a yes to get a closed sale?
Yeah, in my industry, when I started off as a sales rep, and I became a franchisee owner in this company in like 13 months, going from no sales experience because it was ongoing on the job training, and it was the Navy SEAL training of sales. It was insane, and it was the best thing. And it's maybe where I'm at today is 100% because of that career. What their law of averages at the time was 0 out of 10, 10 out of 100, and even though 1 out of 10, 10 out of 100, and even though that you would find 10 yeses out of 100 people, the real mind screw up was. It's definitely a lot of times not the first 10 doors that you see. The first 10 doors, we used to say the sweaty knees, the shaky hands, the marbles in the mouth. Like you had to get all that stuff out because it's nerve wracking for a lot of people to go know that they're going to get rejection. They're going to get people to tell them they're not interested. Get out of here, no soliciting, F you, like whatever they say, which was all just noise. And if you could just pocket that and throw that away and not even let it affect you, that no that you were talking about was a good thing because it got you closer to your yes. And so we knew that we had to see 100 people a day, which is a good amount of people.
Yeah.
And just off the record, once you got good, you didn't have to see 100 people a day, but we still kept that mentality to train people, right? And that work ethic to show by example. But sometimes we wouldn't make sales until like 4 o'clock. So like we would get out there at 9 o'clock in the morning, hear no, 80, 90 times. And then you'd have what's called the third type of day. First type of day is when you go sell everything right away. Second type of day is consistent through the day you're making sales. That's the easiest kind of day because like you're hearing yes. And then the hardest kind of day is you have to keep your attitude until the end of the day, and you still have to be excited to go take more no's, and then that's when you find those 10 yeses. So our law of averages was about 10 for 100.
And that's, you gamified it. You understood that aspect of things. And that's the thing, is most people will never get through it. One of the hardest things I think for most entrepreneurs is they're moving into that space is learning that they've got a market. Yeah. That the whole 80% of sales comes after the fifth contact aspect of things. And they'll send an email blast out or make a couple phone calls and they never follow back up with it. And then they wonder why it doesn't work for everything. Right?
I don't let my people go. I literally make a contact with someone. I'm like a spider and they just stay in my web, but I'm not doing it in a negative, like I'm adding value a ton. Right. And eventually they probably get just sick of me adding value. Like, shit, I'll give you value back.
Well, but it also comes to the point that people, I think, have to be in the mindset and be open to whatever you're offering and realize, oh, well, there's something that light goes off. Hey, I need to call Jesse now because what I need, I know that he serves in that capacity and that he's kept to follow up with me. And there's no greater time like the fourth quarter when everybody follows up. We all get those hello letters from our family members the one time a year that nobody else does. Might as well keep it a year-round activity.
100%. You know, for me, a secret to my success is prospecting and follow-up, and then how I do that. But it's definitely staying top of mind. You know, I don't need to be salesy. I'm just me. I talk how I talk to you. I'm an ex-sailor from Boston. I cuss, like I talk about weird shit. People, they either get it or they don't. And I just care about people. Like we talked about, the very first thing you said in the beginning of the show was my client family. Like I literally look at my clients like they're part of my client family. Like they're people I care for and I would go to battle for. And people feel that and they know that. And so they know they're dealing with someone who's genuine, someone that has something to share and something to offer. And then eventually, whether it's fate, whether it's karma, whether it's just, good business, it just comes back around.
Now, how much ahead of time here as we roll into the final fourth quarter of the year into 2021? And we all know it's a bit of a shit show. Who knows what's going to happen next year? But I'm already planning for next year. I'm assuming that you're already doing the same thing too. What are some of the things that you're kind of tentatively putting in place or looking to put in place this quarter so that you make the most of next year?
Yeah, man. So everything's about operations and process for me. And so making sure I have X amount of touches. So like, just to give people context, I have, when I look at my week, Mondays are my podcasting, my branding, my marketing for my business and for my podcast day. And that's what I do. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is my game days where I meet with clients, I market to clients, I sell whatever the deal is. And then Friday is administrative stuff and financial planning day. So I keep that cadence all year long. That never changes. And I meet 15 to 20 new people every week during that little time period of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And I know that's my law of average. My law of average is meeting 15 to 20 new people every single week. 60 to 80 people a month, that's going to return X. And that's what I know to do every month. So I'm planning ahead of time to continue to do that. Some of the things I look forward to for 2021, I had a conference that I was putting together called Revolution ATL. And it was about 200 people that were going to meet at the place right behind my office where I'm at right now, which is near the Battery where the Braves play or should be playing. And
the Braves, they're up 2 games.
Last night, the game was amazing. I'm going to go watch them again tonight. It's awesome. Excited. Going to do a watch party. I can actually see the stadium from my window. But this conference was going to bring together entrepreneurs, business owners, interested people from Atlanta. Think like maybe like a Grant Cardone, 10X kind of thing where you get these people come in and basically connect with people on that level in Atlanta. And I was looking forward to that. So we had 10 speakers lined up, all professionals from social media to ex-professional athletes to authors to different people to really make it, worthwhile. And we were going to bring these 200 people in to connect and just think about 200 motivated, excited, successful people getting after it, sharing information and trading business ideas. And this was the idea. And we were going to break out from that 200 and have the VIP section where we have about 40, 50 people come out and actually do a roundtable with all of the speakers. We have some of the most successful people in the world coming there. And it's you get to sit in front of John Malott or Michael Coles or Rennie Curran or some of these people. And it blows your mind. And then from there, we're going to take them over to a little VIP dinner. But just having those things to get back to, conferences that I'll be, it's just, those are what I look forward to.
Yeah, I agree. It's hopefully we're able to do some of that stuff here in the next year for the most part.
And in the meantime, I'm doing things. I'm about a third of the way through my first book, Happy Wealth, How to Become Wealthy Happily. It's part my story, part mindset and emotional behavioral stuff, and then 10 steps to become wealthy if you do these things. And real estate is in there, so I need to pick your brain about it a little bit. But but yeah, man, so I got things I'm working on, looking forward to. And the biggest thing for me, and I haven't mentioned this, is my kids, man. Just thinking about them, and they're 6 and 4, and they are literally everything. So everything I do ties in, like from the masculinity movement, showing how to be a good guy. And if I cry, I show my kids how to cry, or I teach them how to build something. Like there's that dynamic. And I teach them about business, I teach them about life. So everything I do comes back to them.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So 6 and 4. So are they distant learning? Are they going to classes, or what are they doing?
So Georgia's gangster, because Georgia was one of the last states to close and the first one to open. And I friggin' love it because I just have my own feelings about the whole thing. But because of that, my youngest son, William, they were both basically at home up until 2 months ago or so. My son, William, who's in pre-K, like daycare, but they do some curriculum stuff, he went back. And then Grayson, my oldest one, who's 6, he's in first grade. He was virtual learning until like just about 2 weeks ago. So having to pivot and having to shift and become a teacher, even though I'm an educator, like through what I do, but be a teacher alongside of the teacher, that was interesting. Working from home, and honestly, dude, I miss it. I miss being with him all day. So to answer your question, now he's back to school. They're both in school and they're both enjoying it.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is, there's some sense of normality once you've been doing what we've been doing. I've been working from home basically since February. I go to my office every once in a blue moon to get the mail.
Same here.
And check in, but it's the same thing. It's nice to be home. When you're dedicated, the TV's off. You can avoid the distractions when you really are focused and have a plan of action in place and go from there. But look, life is full of disruptions. The only thing we're sure of is death and taxes. And so you got to learn to pivot, right, brother?
Learn to pivot and just know that if you're going to be an entrepreneur, get ready for the disruptions and learn to focus.
Amen to that. And make the most of those disruptions. See the opportunity, the silver lining, and it can make it rain for you there for you. Jesse, this has been awesome. We could go on all day here, but I know you got a busy day just like I do. What's the best way for our audience and Note Nation out there, our podcaster followers, the people listening to us on the radio networks and then on social media, what's the best way for them to reach out to you and follow what you're doing?
I would say put up the bat signal and I'll be there. But look, seriously, I'm all over social media. My website is 46and2wealthpartners.com, which is the number 46, the word and the number 2, 46and2wealthpartners.com. You can follow me. I'll follow you back on social media. It's at Jesse_T on LinkedIn. And then it's at Jesse T everywhere else. Then that's JESSETEE, Jesse T.
We'll have all that in the show notes. Everybody else out there on the main website there, man. Jesse, thanks so much for coming on the Note Closure Show, man. Appreciate it. Looking forward to hanging out with you sometime, having a beer too, and having some more interesting conversations on life, liberty, and everything.
Keep crushing it. And I'm here to support you in any way I can.
You too, man. Thanks, Jesse.